An alleged Ubisoft employee says that if Assassin's Creed Shadows sells moderately well, we're in trouble. That's right. Even if this game sells moderately well, the company is going to be in real trouble, according to this alleged Ubisoft employee. Roll this up over at phantompulse.com. You can find the link in the description below. This anonymous and alleged employee spoke to French language site BFM TV and informed it, if the game does moderately well, we're in real trouble. The employee added, if Shadows sells very well, we'll be able to start breathing a sigh of relief. The employee would go on to provide more color, saying, already, if it sells like Odyssey, which is the second best-selling game of all time, obviously referring to the Assassin's Creed franchise, we'll be happy. Alongside this employee's comments, BFM TV reported the development team at Ubisoft Quebec is optimistic about the game's potential. And obviously, that seems to be what we've seen from Ubisoft executives leading up to this game, albeit, obviously, we know that they did delay it from November originally to February, and then they delayed it another month here to March. They spent at least 20 million euros delaying it to February and likely spent more delaying it to March. But what we heard from Ubisoft in a report, third quarter sales report, they said that pre-orders are tracking solidly in line with those of Assassin's Creed Odyssey, the second most successful entry of the franchise. Chief Financial Officer Frederick Duguay said, in regards to the back catalog, the Assassin's Creed franchise performed strongly throughout the quarter, highlighted by the Steam release of Assassin's Creed Mirage, confirming that the brand is in great shape. I've talked about that before. The numbers for Mirage did not look all that great looking at that Steam release. On top of claiming that the entire brand is in great shape, CEO Yves Guillemot provided more color on the game's pre-orders, responding to a question from Barclays' Nick Dempsey. A little bit of misspelling there. Sorry for that. But he asked, was Odyssey the second biggest revenue-generating game, or was it the second biggest unit sales-generating game in its early months, first quarter, whatever works? I'm just thinking it had more in-game spending than previous Assassin's Creeds. I'm just thinking what our pre-orders might mean for our first 12 days of Shadows unit sales. A really good question, obviously providing a distinction between units sold and then obviously units sold on top of in-game purchases. This is how CEO Yves Guillemot replied or answered. He said, Odyssey is the second biggest performer in the franchise's history, very close to Valhalla in terms of units sold on the comparable time basis. At the time when we launched Odyssey, it set a new benchmark for the franchise, so it was a very successful first week. So that's what we can say at this stage. And when we look back, Odyssey has been accumulating 40 million players to date, so it's been really a great success. So what we see as a pre-orders benchmark is encouraging. Now, we don't know what that pre-orders benchmark actually is because they haven't given us any, they didn't give us any details on that. We did get a rumor from Tom Henderson at Insider Gaming, who has been pretty accurate, I think, with a lot of his reporting coming out of Ubisoft. He was on top of the X-Defiant stuff very early on. He says that the game's pre-order hit 300,000, and he claimed that Odyssey had sold 400,000 to 450,000 copies by the time it released. Remember, that was in the middle of February, so it's been about a month since that report. No, I don't think I've seen an update on how much those pre-orders have increased or whether or not they've stayed the same or not, or decreased in like the growth, etc. When I wrote this, the game was the 41st most wishlist game on Steam with just 31,797 followers according to SteamDB. We can actually look at this and see what it is in real time. Let's just do a quick Control F here. And we can see that it is 39th. So it hasn't really moved up all that much on the most wishlisted, even though the game literally comes out in a couple of days here. So that is not really good. And then you can see 32,554 followers. That is really, really low. You can see almost every single game ahead of it has more followers than it on Steam. And then obviously the ones at the top have way more. Elden Ring Night Rain, 111,425. Mecha Break, 177,412. Borderlands 4, which comes out in September, 72,130. All of these have more than double what Assassin's Creed Shadow has. It is fifth in the top sellers. But again, what does that mean? Hard to actually know. Other metrics there, not looking good for the game. It was seventh when I wrote this. earlier this week. So it's moved up 2 spots on that top sellers chart there. But again, you can see kind of what the top sellers is, right? The Steam Deck is on there, Monster Hunter Wilds, Counter-Strike 2, Split Fiction, Cyberpunk 2077. Like Cyberpunk 2077, obviously it's on sale, but it was performing better than Assassin's Creed Shadows. So hard to know exactly what that means. And obviously you have in-game purchases, etc. too, which Shadows doesn't have as of yet. So it is likely the game will have to sell around 10 million copies to break even, given that Assassin's Creed executive producer Mark Alexis Cote revealed during an interview that AAA games like Assassin's Creed need to sell between 8 and 12 million units to break even. He said this: when you look at who succeeds, at least in the AAA space, so what I'm going to say applies to like mostly premium games, more traditional kind of AAA games. You have 10 games in any given year that will sell about 10 million copies. The reason I'm quoting the 10 million copies kind of mark is from what I've seen and how I've seen costs, our costs, and costs of competitors and everybody. Everything leaks in our industry, so you have privileged information on where the competition is going. But mostly, I estimate the 10 million copies, give or take 2 million copies, is mostly what you need to break even. But you have only 10 games that breach that every year. Out of those 10, you'll have probably 3 sports games. You'll have 4 games on established franchises, and probably 2 or 3 games that are surprise hits coming from nowhere. But that leaves very, very little room and wiggle room for success. So I'm trying to steer the Assassin's Creed franchise through that. So I think even if they do the 400,000 pre-orders, I just don't think that it's going to hit that 8 to 10, 12 million mark. That seems really, really far away. We'll see if they do any kind of announcement on how well it does in the first 24 hours, the first week, etc. I think if they do make an announcement, I think that is probably an encouraging sign for Ubisoft. If they don't, I think we might see something very similar to Star Wars Outlaws. Never got any kind of information regarding that game and the sales that it did. There was a rumor, again, from Insider Gaming that said it did about 1 million copies, but all we really heard from Ubisoft was that sales were soft and that it underperformed expectations. And honestly, that's kind of what I'm expecting with Assassin's Creed Shadows. I obviously think it will probably sell better than Star Wars Outlaws, given that it still has, I guess, a good brand around it, where I think the Star Wars brand has been significantly damaged with Lucasfilm's embrace of wokeness. I think this game will probably be one of the first that we will see that kind of suffer. That Ubisoft will see kind of suffer from embracing its wokeness. We know that's what they're all about now. It's all over their website. The producer Mark Alexis Cote has said that inclusivity is inherent in history and it is inherent in their games, etc. So they're all about pushing that agenda, and they're all about pushing that message through their games and storytelling. And he has been very upfront about that. But we will see what happens. I do find it interesting that this alleged employee here is saying that even if it does sell well, that's not good enough. If it does moderately well, they're still in trouble. And I think that is likely the case. I mean, it has to sell at least between 8 to 12 million, I think. And I just don't think we are going to see that. I just don't think this game is going to do that. And remember, a lot of the sales do take place when games initially release. So I just don't think that there's a lot of hype for this game. I think they would have been better releasing it in November with as buggy as what it was and just kind of eating the loss, because I just don't think people have changed their minds on this. I think they have made up their minds, and I don't think any kind of marketing or influencers or outlets praising the game is going to really change people's minds on this. But let me know what you guys make of this. How do you think this game is going to perform? And what do you make of this employee admitting that even if the game sells moderately well, that Ubisoft is in real trouble? Let me know in the comments below. Remember to always be charitable, especially to each other, and to always, always speak the truth.